Ah. Hello, can anybody hear me? Hello?
Hey, Jeff, we can hear you.
Anyone can-
Yeah,
Okay, so you're muted. I couldn't hear anything before.
they're working on one section, traffic can go through
Yeah.
an open area. They'll keep it as open as possible.
Doesn't that metal have to be removed before any?
Yes,
Oh,
all of it,
all of it.
Everything.
all of it,
And
because
concrete and
because
whatever.
you don't, because
From
if
hazard
it's,
and navigation.
You can't leave-
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's bad enough if
Absolutely.
if the boat, if your ship hits dry ground, right?
Should run aground,
It's,
yeah.
it's,
A telephone pole even. something
right,
like
it's,
that.
it's disastrous if you hit a piece of bridge.
Can you imagine one of those boats coming through there and its propellers get stuck on that stuff and they lose steerage? I mean, it's the
It would
same.
probably burn up the engine and the whole thing would catch on fire.
I mean, you'd have a repeat, yeah.
It
No,
is, I mean, I woke up this morning and I turned on CNN, which is kind of what I typically do, just kind of, and it's like, and I was like, wait, I turned on CNN, I didn't turn on local, right, because it was like,
Yeah.
you know, Hebrew, right, and I'm like, wait, why are they showing me local
Yeah.
stuff on CNN, right, and then
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It
MSNBC, the same thing.
was I mean, it was just like,
It's crazy.
it was a jaw dropper.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I had a friend from Florida call me first thing this morning
Right.
because she'd gotten up and had seen that, and she was like, wait a minute, and she was still sleepy enough, she was like, wait a minute, is that near you, or you, you know? And,
Right.
Are you
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah,
But thank God, I mean, if there is a thank God to all this, which there is, that is 1:30 in the morning
Not
means there's very
7:30.
little traffic,
Yeah.
which, I mean, can you imagine if it had happened at 5 o'clock in the afternoon?
7:30 in the morning.
7:30 in the morning, you would have hundreds of people who would be,
Supposedly the ship captain or the pilot called the Port Authority and they stopped.
Yeah, they did.
they stopped traffic.
going
They
across
did
the-
stop, they did
before-
stop traffic before that, you're right.
So a lot,
Really?
many
Yes.
fewer people.
but still, there were some
There were
on there, so
still
they
They didn't have a lot of warning either. They couldn't have had.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wow, what, and I was, another thing I was listening to this morning was that when they were making the calls, like, no one really believed or understood just to the degree they were talking about,
Yeah.
right?
That's-
You know, they said, you know, the bridge is collapsed, so like, what is that, like, the whole bridge is gone, right? They're like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
The whole bridge is gone.
Yeah.
I keep thinking in terms of wartime response, you know, when you have a critical channel and everything in the world shows up to clean it. I keep expecting that in the next 4 or 5 days, we're gonna have
One day.
federal this and that.
Should be
fire
one
over
day.
there.
Yeah, they'll be out there
If-
tomorrow.
If you think we should have 4 or 5 days, I think it should, like, there's no reason why it shouldn't be one day.
Well, I mean, where are they? They might be,
Right, it may take a
It
while
may
because,
take
because
days to
it's
get
gonna
there.
all be by boat, right? Like, everything that's coming is gonna, like, you know, right, so it's
They'll
not
be
like,
holding-
not like they can take their fishing pole out there
They'll
from
be
the
holding
side.
off a bit. They're trying to recover the 6 bodies, I think, or 6 people on the
Is it
boat.
just 6?
That's the
No,
last I heard.
That's amazing.
that's how many they are aware are missing.
Right.
But
6
there-
cars,
well,
not
no,
6
no,
people.
No,
no,
there's-
6 people.
There are 6 people that,
6 people, but they don't know, there are
Oh,
also.
was it not people who were driving? It was
No.
people-
no, it's the work crew. There's a work crew on the bridge.
Right,
Manning repairing potholes,
right.
and there are 8 of them on the bridge. They recovered 2 of them. So those, the other 6,
So
they know. are
no drivers?
Well, we don't know, there are, I heard something late this afternoon where they have been using whatever equipment and have located some vehicles, they didn't say how
Right.
many, but of course, how long are those vehicles, but, you know, we
Well,
don't know. if
you
it's a
could
brand
probably
new-
take a look at it and say, it
Well,
looks pretty
yeah,
rusty.
They'll know that
Well, no,
when
it's-
they get to them, but I mean, at this point, from the imaging, they had discovered cars, but they had no idea whether there were people in any
Right.
of those cars.
Right.
So they don't know yet.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
It's
heartbreaking.
been a rough year for Baltimore area work crews,
Yeah.
construction workers, I mean, road construction workers.
Yeah, it's gonna be a recovery operation for probably a day or 2,
Yeah.
and then they'll start, you know.
Massive.
But I think they're gonna do it faster than you think.
I go to town.
They'll get it
2 or
open,
3
they'll get
times
it
a
cleaned
week.
up very
Because
fast.
it's so, it's not just about Baltimore. It's like if it was Baltimore, it affected no one else, but this is affecting, this is gonna affect the northeast
economy.
The Northeast economy. Baltimore is a very large port for imports and exports. It's,
Truck drivers.
Right.
And car dealers all over the country,
Oh, yeah.
because a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah,
this
you
is
see a
where
lot
it
of
comes
cars in the
through.
parking lots there.
jeez, I mean,
A
really.
lot of cars come through there,
What's that?
but a lot of cars, new cars coming through manufactured
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Baltimore.
And I'll tell you, and you know, wait, who was telling me about this? Maybe it was, oops, sorry. Maybe it was Jill. She said that, she said that over the Bay Bridge, you can just see this back jam up. If you drive over the Bay Bridge and you just look out the window and you just see a line of ships just waiting, because, you know, it's like they're all just in a holding
It's a
pattern.
big parking lot.
Right, and how do you, like, at what point, like, how do you know when, oh, you know what, maybe we should turn around, or maybe we should just drop this off somewhere else, right? It's, at what point is that decision made? But probably would take a long time to make a decision, and so they're just gonna sit there and wait it
Well,
out.
whoever's managing the ship that's out there
Right,
has to arrange a port for that ship to
right,
go
it's the
to.
whole thing.
Yeah. There's no point in just turning around and steaming someplace
No,
until you
they're
know
gonna
you're
drop
gonna be
anchor.
able to dock.
Right.
They're
Because
just gonna sit there.
everybody's
is-
gonna be ahead of you that was, you know, anybody closer.
I mean, there's always
It's a
half a dozen or more big,
Yeah, but-
big ships
Yeah.
out there,
But,
that is gonna be
but
more.
that's always because, you know, they made it a little early or they made it late, and so they missed their window.
Right.
And that's whatever, that's the kind of what happens, I suppose. But when you've made your window and you're just sitting there because it's beyond your control, it's Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher k'shanu tzipanu tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Praise you, Adonai our God, for commanding us to busy ourselves in the words of Torah. Amen. Did we do Elazar ben Azariah's, and I never sent, I was gonna send, I made copies. Did we do Elazar ben Azariah's, Perek 3:17? Did we do that one last week, or did we not? Did we just finish the background on him?
No, we didn't do 317, we
Okay.
did 316.
Right. No, and then we did all of Elazar ben Azariah's background, which was, if you remember, he's the young guy who became the Nasi, but then because they thought it made sense to just, you know, they needed someone a little older and more worldly, so they gave it to somebody. They gave it back to Gamliel, despite his being such a bitter pill. And
I don't know if we got all the way through.
Careful choice of words there.
yeah,
I think we got to Sifra, Kedushim.
Oh, really? So we didn't.
I don't know if we
didn't
got to
finish
get, I
the
don't know if we
background?
got to get in.
Let's see, where's my Elazar ben Azariah? Oh, is it possible I left it in my office thinking we had finished it? All right, so then I'll just grab one of these texts. So,
No, I don't think we got, I think we got to, we're getting 67,
I thought
we
we
finished
finished
all,
all.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right, we didn't quite.
about the pile of nuts, I don't think we got to that.
Oh, all right.
Did
All
we?
right, you know what, let me go get my original.
Jim,
I have
did we
some
go to
notes
that
on it.
one?
I'll be back in 10, 20
We're-
minutes.
3:17.
No, on the backgrounds?
You know, I'm sort of looking for it, and
I don't think we got to the one where they recount the praise of the sages by characterizing each of them.
We certainly got. to-
Scholar, when he chooses to be one, a pile of nuts.
Okay.
We got
just a
through-
minute.
we got
Here's
through-
Elazar
Did we
ben
get to
Azariah.
that one?
We got through the spice.
Am I the only one who has a folder for each sage?
Yeah.
A file folder for all of our sages? All right, so
No, we did get to that one, Karen?
Well, I think we read the next to the last one on this extra last page, the about the Rabbi Natan.
Just as one removes a pile,
I think we read that
all the other
one.
notes fall? I don't know if we
Or
read
at
that one.
least-
No, we did. I remember doing the Gittin 67.
We did.
You know, he's a pile of nuts.
Yeah, we did that for sure.
All right. we did that.
All right, so let's go. We'll start with so a couple more. Oh, all right, so fine. So this is we'll do
Spice Peddler's Basket?
Avot Rabbi Natan and 18:1. So Jeff and Sharon, I hope you see where we are. Avot Rabbi Natan 18:1. Nice to see you. I can't hear you, Sharon, but that's okay. I can see you, and that's all that matters.
Where are we again?
Avot de Rabbi Nathan. So after Gittin, let's see,
It's just,
here.
Second to the last page,
Next to the last.
Yeah, probably the
No.
second to last page.
That one page.
back one page.
And then
So
it's-
I'm looking at the materials with the link.
Yeah, it's like the third to last one. Third to last one. All right, so it's Rabbi, and this, by the way, is similar to the one, if you remember from the one above, it was describing the various different rabbis and regarding that Elazar referred to him as a basket of fragrant spices, and comparing him to just he kind of like a Renaissance man. He knew about lots of different things, and he had a lot of things worthy of selling, so to speak. Yehuda Hanassi would praise the virtue of these sages also, because the last one was Issi ben Yehuda. Now it's Yehuda Hanassi, the great rabbi. He called Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah a spice peddler's basket, so similar to the previous one. For Rabbi Elazar was like a merchant who took his cart and traveled around the country, and everyone would come out and say to him, "Do you have fine oil? Do you have herbal ointments? Do you have persimmons?" And they would find that he had everything. And I think it's talking about him just kind of like a Renaissance man, meaning like he had lots of things to offer in lots of different areas. We're going to read his Pirkei Avot, and then we're probably going to get to the next sage, hopefully today, if not, then maybe next time, but we'll learn about this next one, Elazar ben Chizma, that he was kind of specific. He had a specific skill. But Elazar, it appears as if he's got lots. My guess is, being as wealthy as he was, he probably learned Greek also growing up, and he learned philosophy growing up as well, so he was more well-rounded. And I think that you're probably getting a sense that what they were trying to communicate is just how well-rounded he was. So it was with Elazar ben Azariah. When a student would come and ask a question, Rabbi Elazar would tell him something from Scripture, something from Mishnah, something from Midrash, something from the law, something from the legends, and the student would leave feeling full of goodness and blessing. That is a very nice thing that was said about it. That's a great, I wish someone would once say that about me. And just in case you are wondering, the spice peddler's basket is compared to the various disciplines of rabbinic literature, right? So Scripture is referring to Torah or the Tanakh. Mishnah is, as what we've been learning, is the core kernel statement for what the Talmud would become. Midrash, that is the rabbinic storytelling of, usually it's reading between the lines of the text. Obviously it's more than that, but usually something from the law. That is, now they're talking about the two different types of expressions which come from the Talmud, right? Or which would. So law is Jewish law. Is it okay to have your sukkah, stuck to the house, or does it have to be separate to the house? And then legends are stories. So the legends is the stuff that we've focused on legends in this, we just always talk about legends. This is the person, this is the stories about him, these are the legends. Every once in a while I share, he had this, he came up with this law, this ruling. It's just to kind of maybe help you just kind of better understand the rabbi or the sage, because the law or the ruling does kind of give a little away as to what their interests may have been, or what their kind of, how they kind of set their gaze. But for us, it's just really about the people themselves. And what they're saying is, because, for example, guys like Rabbi Eliezer, hopefully, I don't know if you remember when we talked about, but Eliezer was the plastered sister, and kind of the, not the enemy, but the foil to Yehoshua, the guy who was always about the exact letter of the law, and this is what it says, and this is what I was told. And he was brilliant, didn't forget a thing, but he focused on law. These are the rules, these are the laws, right? Yehoshua was more open to all these other things, and now we're talking about Elazar ben Azariah, was also was a Renaissance man. Probably though, he didn't excel in any one of these areas. Meaning, no one says he was the expert in X, Y, or Z. Rather, he was exceedingly learned in A through Z. And I think, but then maybe that's partly hard to know. Like, we'll never know why it was that, exactly, we kind of get hints as to why it is that that Gamliel was returned to his position. But we don't know. All we know is kind of what we see. We don't know necessarily what the truth is. Was it that he was too young? Was it that he wasn't worldly enough? Was it that he didn't have a specific area of expertise? When you think about it, like presidents of universities, I'm just using this as an example. Typically, they are kind of scholars in one discipline, and they found their way moving up the chain into the president of the university, right? So, this one was like Larry Summers, for example, right? He was the president of Harvard, but he was an economist.
Right.
And, so he doesn't know about Greek philosophy. Well, he probably does a lot, but that's not his, specialty. And so, his specialty was economics. And he became the president of Harvard, knowing that was his particular discipline and speciality. And it's possible that Elazar didn't have one. And as a result, that maybe I don't know. Now I'm speculating, but I just think that it's kind of fun to think about what it is.
So did anything really happen? Was there a crisis that he didn't respond to, or did he make
Not that we know of.
some poor judgment?
Nope.
That resulted?
In fact, just the opposite. Not that we know of. We just thought that there was a sense that by many of the rabbis that we needed someone in there with a little bit more gravitas, because this position is really critical. It's not just, even though we think about the president of the head of the Sanhedrin, the Nasi, as being like the chief rabbi of Israel, of the people living at the time there, what really is, it's more of a political position, and you have to be prepared to, go before the Roman Caesar and to advocate on our behalf to the various the people who were the Roman leaders of the region. Is that like a what's that?
Procurator.
Procurator, right. Like he had to kind of advocate with that. Like, so there's so many things, and maybe they were saying, like, we're sending a 20-year-old to do this. This is too important. And it's possible that they just kind of, it's not that he did anything wrong, but that he just kind of didn't give them the confidence that they wanted.
Well, it's kind of looking at him as a jack of all trades, but he's more than that, because he has more knowledge than just someone who has.
Oh, for sure. He's not just like he's not just right. He knows a ton about all this stuff. He just might not be the expert. I was only just bringing that up. Right, but at the same time, he knows, but I think it sounds to me, based on Yudah Nasi, that he could hold his own in a debate with anybody on any one of these subjects, which is, something to say.
When I first came to Michigan State University, John Hanna was the president. And he was the first head of AID. He had brought the Western civilization courses from Columbia and other places to be taught to all students.
Right.
And so an Englishman came and asked of this big man, what's his major? And somebody says, poetry. They said, poetry? He said, oh, how wonderful. No, it was poultry.
Wait.
Poultry.
Hannah was an expert in poultry?
Yes, that was where he got his original background.
That's hilarious. It's like the on Saturday Night Live, there was this character played by Gilda Radner. It's not Rosanna Dana. It was, I forget what her name, anyway, her whole gimmick was she misunderstood.
Right.
Right. So one of them was she doesn't know what the problem is with all these violins on TV. Right. But the other one, which I loved, was what's such a big deal about the Soviet jewelry? Right. It's like it's nice jewelry. Like no, it's Jewry they're talking about. Violence. Oh, never mind. She says after doing this whole thing. You're like, oh, never mind.
Emily Litella.
Emily,
Litella?
right, something like that, right? I think you're right. So similar,
I
not
have a
poetry,
minor
poetry.
question here. When it says that he would give something from the legends, is that the life stories or is that like Legends of the Jews from Ginsburg?
No, it's not. It's Agadah, which means stories. So it's like what it's saying is anything in rabbinic literature that isn't specifically legal, but it's rather just telling kind of background material or just basically everything we're doing. Now you might say, but he was earlier, so how could he know all this stuff, right? But there were other times or it was oral things. And the point was that it wasn't just that he knew our material about laws, it was he knew about so much more than that. But I do love, and the student would leave feeling full of goodness and blessing. That, like that they had just been enchanted. That's kind of how I read that, right? It's like, oh my God, this was an incredible conversation we just had. On the next one, the Talmud asks prior to this, so I'm just kind of giving you just the context for this. The Talmud is having a conversation. And the reason why you're not seeing it is because I would have just had paragraphs prior, and I just wanted to get to the point. But the context is, how do you make sense of different opinions? When you've got one rabbi who says one thing, one rabbi says another thing, how do you deal with that, right? So in Chagigah, that's what we're on, and it says, so too you, so this is Elazar speaking, by the way. Mm-hmm. So too you, the student, he says, make your ears like a funnel and acquire for yourself an understanding heart to hear both the statements of those who render objects ritually impure and the statements of those who render them pure. So he gives you two, at least at this point, two suggestions. Number one is give yourself an understanding heart to hear. In other words, be open to people's opinions that disagree with you. Just be open to it. And second, and the first one is make your ears like a funnel. Yeah, I mean, I'm giving you funnel is open wide on one side and thin on the other side, right? So you can stick a funnel directly into your ear. And what it will do is, but it will collect things that are happening from, a wider, I mean, it's a metaphor, but the metaphor is clear. It's like what it's trying to do is, instead of just you having one thin strip that goes into your ear, rather it's a wider net. And so you listen to many people as you can. Make your ears like a funnel. Acquire yourself an understanding heart to hear. So that's how you start when you're trying to make sense of, get the evidence, get the information. Don't just make knee-jerk reactions. I think it's actually, there's pretty wise advice. I would say this one is, sometimes the Talmud speaks from a different time, and sometimes it's pretty timely, and probably we could stand to learn a little bit from there. And so it says, hear both the statements of those who render objects ritually impure and the statements of those who render them pure, the statements of those who prohibit actions and the statements of those who permit them, the statements of those who deem items invalid and the statements of those who deem them valid. When Rabbi Yehoshua heard these interpretations, remember, so Yehoshua is kind of like his big brother, more than his big brother, because he's probably 30 years older than him. He's kind of like his mentor, right? He said to them in these words, no generation is considered orphaned if Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah dwells among us. Wow.
Pretty nice.
I think anybody would be happy to have that said about them.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Major compliment.
it's a major compliment. Now, we don't know, as we read before, do you remember, you probably remember the last time when we read the stories about, oh, what novel idea came out of the schoolhouse this week? You know, whose week was it? Because Yehoshua, you know, he may have been the primary person to restore Gamliel to his post of Nasi, and he did so, and he essentially martyred himself by doing so. He's not just a combatant. He's not just an enemy. He's not. It's not just that he and Gamliel are, have disagreements. It's that Gamliel had tried over and over again, not just to humiliate Yehoshua, which he did, but also to force Yehoshua to compromise his own kind of Jewish ritual, because he also, remember, forced Yehoshua to come one day with money and staff on Yom Kippur, just because they have a disagreement about who's right. And so it's like, this is an enemy. This isn't just a person who I have disagreements with. And so even if, and what I love about this, believe it or not, is it's less, I mean, even though of course this is a ringing endorsement of Elazar ben Azariah, it almost is more of a statement about Yehoshua though, right? And which is that he's human. He is still carrying with him resentment and anger towards Gamliel, such that he's going to say these grand statements about Elazar ben Azariah, because it's yeah, of course, grand statements about him, just because he's trying to, it's almost like it's what he's not doing is saying anything nice about Gamliel in this, and that's his intention. It's to build up the rival to Gamliel, the co-Nasi to Gamliel, which is, if there were co-presidents of Temple Beth Shalom, and all I did was praise one of the two, people at some point would say, wow, that's a pretty strong statement, right? Where's the praise for the other one? Not right. And it's similarly here. If it's almost as if no generation is orphaned with Elazar ben Azariah leading it, dwelling among it. It is a true statement, probably, in which he did feel somewhat genuine saying these types of things, and we're just trying to kind of compliment Elazar, but I think there's also something there which is kind of trying to nick another dig on Gamliel. He probably deserved it. Anyway, the next one, which is the continuation of the story, by the way, but I intentionally broke it off, right? Because you can see Chagiga 3b, page 3b, and it's just paragraph 5, and then it's 6 through 11. So I just broke them off intentionally. Now, by the way, this document and the Safaria website are like the places where you're going to see the 6 through 11. Like the Talmud doesn't say this paragraph or that paragraph. It just does its thing. It's just broken up into fragments just to make it simpler, easier to kind of be able to locate things. But this is just a Safaria thing. Anyway, the Gemara asks, but Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka and Rabbi Elazar ben Chisma should have told Rabbi Yehoshua these statements of Elazar ben Azariah directly without delay. He is talking that it's this story. It's the story about whose novel idea, what was the novel idea. That also, I'm pretty sure, came from Chagiga. Let's see. Yeah. You could see it's a couple pages earlier, or a couple earlier, but it's Chagiga 3a 15 to 17. Yes. So the point is that it's all part of the same story. And they're saying that they should have told Yehoshua directly. Instead of waiting, and by the way, my wife, Hannah, has this problem with me. She always says that she feels like she's pulling information out of me. I'll say to her something like, I spoke with Sammy, our kid in college. And I'm like, I spoke with Sammy today. What'd he say? He's doing all right. Did he mention about, yes, he mentioned about, did he say if he was about, yeah, he said, and she feels like she's constantly pulling things from me. It's like, why can't you just say it? She says, well, my brain is one day, when I die, I'm going to donate, my brain to science, and they're going to study it. And they're going to be like, this is a completely unusual one here.
No, it's not.
So anyway, they should have told him directly without delay. Why did they hesitate at first, it says? Well, this is not the actual text. This is the Gemara answers. They were hesitant due to an incident that occurred. As it is taught, there was an incident involving Yossi ben Dermaskit, who went to greet Rabbi Eliezer in Lod. Elazar said to him, what novel idea was taught today in the study hall? Yossi ben Dermaskit said to him, the sages assembled, counted the votes, and concluded that although the lands of Ammon and Moab are on the eastern side of the Jordan River and not part of Eretz Yisrael, therefore the halachot of the sabbatical year and tithes should not apply to them. In other words, right, the sabbatical and tithes and all that applies to us, not them on the other side. Rabbi Elazar said to him in anger, Yossi, extend your hands and catch your eyes, which are about to come out of their sockets. Now, at first when I read this, I thought that was just kind of like just an expression. Like, oh my God, when you hear what I'm about to say, your jaw is going to come unhinged from your mouth, right? And it's going to just be laying flat on the table. I thought it was, but it's not. He extended his hands and caught his eyes. Something tells me, by the way, this didn't actually happen, but Rabbi Elazar wept and said, the counsel of the Lord is with them who fear him and his covenant to make them know it. In other words, sages arrived at the correct conclusion, although they were unaware of the proper rationale behind it. So in other words, what Elazar is saying, miraculously, you guys are fine, except you came at it so wrong, but you arrived at the right decision accidentally. Despite your greatest attempts to not get this right, you actually got it right. And that, by the way, it's like I'm with kids, or something, and I'm teaching something, and I'll say, who is this? Or, and someone will get the right answer, and it will be completely like, I know they had no idea. Right? Bader Herzl? Like, yeah. How did you know that? Oh, it's the only name I knew. Like, oh, that explains, right? Right? It's like kind of this. It's like, despite them trying, they didn't know what they were doing, they still got the right answer. Rabbi Elazar said to Rabbi Yossi, go and say to the sages in the study hall, do not be concerned with regard to your counting, that you may not have ruled properly, as you have not, in fact, instituted a new ordinance at all. In other words, just in case you're worried that you got this wrong, everyone breathe easy, everything is fine. This is the tradition that I received from Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, who heard from his teacher and his teacher from his teacher. So what's happening, though, I guess what I'm trying to show you is that this was also, Elazar at some point started to kind of get a little bit of an attitude as well, which is the pompous kind of, yeah, you got it right, but not because you thought it through correctly. And I think that that getting the correct ruling, like for us here at Temple Beth Shalom, if you say to me, I'm going to be in Mexico for the last day of Passover, right? Or for half of Passover, can I eat a corn tortilla? I said to you, sure, it's flat. Right? And turns out that it's not that you can eat it because it's flat, but rather because it's corn. So I got it right. But the point is that you, like me giving you the correct answer according to Judaism, like you just want some perspective. What you would benefit from is just me saying, well, here's a thought. This is one way. You're asking what you should do when you're in Mexico during Passover. Like do how you want to, but let me give you some. You just you're interested in my suggestions, but you're not taking what I say as like the Pope in the Catholic Church. But for them, every single ruling and the accuracy of that ruling was huge, because the temple's destroyed, sacrifices gone, and they are instituting this whole new world of Judaism, which is based on Jewish law, which, by the way, is still kind of the property of just a select few who have the capacity to be able to understand and interpret Jewish law. And so being precise with it was everything. Because if you're not precise, like now, maybe we can be a little, the reform movement of all has created space for for a wide interpretation of things without an absolute right answer or a wrong answer. But even as time has kind of progressed, there are different, you see it in today's world, so long as you have, this community believes one thing and that community believes a slightly different thing, and so long as it was done on good faith by the rabbi of the community, then it's fine. But here it was very specific that they were really and truly kind of setting down the groundwork and framework for Jewish life that would go for at minimum 2,000 more years, because that's where we are right now. And so they took that very seriously, and making sure that they had the proper rulings on things was as important as making sure that they had sacrificed correctly. Okay.
Well, and one thing too that's important to remember at this time period, even though of course there are, Torah scrolls and there are some things that are written.
Mm-hmm.
An awful lot of it
Is not.
That's and
right.
It can't, and even if it's written somewhere,
That's right.
It's not like there are copies all over the place.
That's right.
And so
That's right.
what is said
is critical.
Has to be right.
Yeah, and this goes back to the conversation we once had before about, which I think is a critical conversation to appreciate what's going on here, because, and I'll use the two great rabbis to remind you, Yehoshua and Eliezer. And they were, let's call it, the spiritual descendants of Hillel and Shammai. And Shammai / Eliezer, they were more closed in terms of who could study with them, because they wanted to make sure that they had a group of very sophisticated intellects who were able to handle this type of very complicated material and remember it well. So we had a pure transmission of our heritage to the next generation, right? Yehoshua, on the other hand, was, and if you remember Elazar ben Azariah too, when he became the Nasi, the first thing he did was open up the doors to the yeshiva. And why? He's like, this is not material which is limited to a select few. Rather, this should be open to anybody who wants to study this and learn this and absorb this, right? And that's great. And I approve of that. And if it were me, I would be squarely in that camp of, yeah, everyone should be able to learn this. But I still see the reason and merit behind what Eliezer and Shammai were trying to say, which is, if you let everybody do this, then everyone is going to be doing their own thing, or we're not going to have like a standardized kind of agreed upon tradition because the whole world is going to be doing their own. Now, it didn't quite work out that way, but the fact is to some degree it kind of did, because the Talmud is a continuation of these discussions, right? It's not, the Talmud is a discussion, rabbi arguing with rabbi. And why are they arguing? If they knew the precise answer, there'd be no arguments. But Hillel and Yehoshua, again, it's not a bad thing. It's just kind of what they decided, that better for more people to know, not everything, but a lot. And therefore, and then we can continue to kind of discuss and argue about what it is and what it should be, and then let that be over the course of generations, at least better, and we'll still arrive at what the answer is at some point, but it'll be as a bunch of people are discussing and arguing about it. Good for them.
Makes me think of, and I know in a different place than Judges, I think, where there is no king.
Right.
Everybody does
Whatever
they think is right.
It's exactly what Judges. That's right, and that is disturbing, right? We don't like that, but at the same time, right? We don't want to have, a lawless Judaism. We don't want to have a free-for-all in which, but that's, by the way, the accusation that the Orthodox make against
I
Reform.
would say the ultra-Orthodox are.
Against Reform. They're
more
like, oh, you
shallow.
guys do whatever you want to.
Right.
It's like, don't you know that this is how you do it? You're just making up, as they say, everyone's making Shabbos for themselves. That's the kind of the famous expression. And yeah, I get it. Except the thing about it is that the difference is that because they think that if everyone would just do it their way, then everyone would just see the beauty of their way, and no one would deviate from it. And what I would argue is, if we're not here doing what we're doing, then there is going to be a world of Jews who are going to just feel so disenfranchised and disconnected from Judaism that they're going to say this doesn't apply to me. It's an antiquated, ancient kind of cultic religion which has nothing to do with us. And so, just as much as we Reform Jews need the Orthodox, so we have something to push up against and say, no, we can't do that. They need us too, because they need us to kind of be the ones who say, we're kind of going to try to reimagine this and hang on to the people who you are alienating because of your rigidity and your old style ways. And who knows what the right answer is in terms of what's best for Judaism. I'd like to think we do, but we could be wrong. We're not wrong in what we do, but we could be wrong in terms of what's best for, if you have a crystal ball and look at Judaism in 200 years, 100 years, and will we look and say, wow, the Reform movement saved Judaism? Or will we say the Reform movement destroyed Judaism? And who knows? I'd like to think that it'll be saved Judaism, but we don't know what 150, 200 years from now looks like.
Well, if you look at what happened after the destruction of the temple, when they had to come up with this whole method,
Right.
I'd say we're right there in the honored tradition all the way back.
Right.
Because
What you're saying is, and I agree, is that what we have in common with these sages from the first and second century is that in just the same way that they looked at their circumstances and they decided that they needed to make adjustments and they needed to make changes in order for Judaism to survive and thrive, so too the Reform movement is doing the same thing. And that is a very compelling argument, that we are whereas the ultra-Orthodox would say, you're not like Rabbi Akiva, we're like Rabbi Akiva. No, yes, it's true. They're more like Rabbi Akiva in terms of the way that they observe Judaism at this moment, but we're more like Rabbi Akiva in terms of the way that we have chosen to use our brains to adjust ourselves and to respond to the issues of modernity or the issues of just the geopolitical situation.
Well, especially with using Akiva, because with him drawing from both the Hillel side and the Shammai side of things, that synthesis is something that the Orthodox aren't interested in,
No, they're not. They're not interested in change.
or even appreciating the spectrum.
That's right. They're not interested in, but they would, but you know about the part about Elazar who says, make your ear like a funnel. They're open to that. They're open to, because they're not saying they're not open to listening to, but what they're talking about is, can you eat, this on Passover? And they're interested in kind of, they're happy to listen to various different opinions about it. And then after listening to all these opinions, we can arrive at the answer to the question, which is the law. And then once we arrive at that answer, then that's what everyone does. Reform, on the other hand, would say, yeah, we're open to listening to different opinions, and we're going to reject them and do whatever we want to. Or not reject them. Like, we're just gonna
do something, but then revisit that
Yeah.
as
No, but
other
it's a
things
really
come around.
worthy thought you have, which is that we ultimately are the spiritual descendants of these sages only because, well, not only, but in large measure because we joined them in recognizing that we have to make a change. And whereas the priests of that time and the Orthodox of this time are not interested in change. They're interested in keeping things exactly the same.
So then both are necessary
Yeah,
against,
I think so too. Yeah. So
That's a very good point.
so the was that the last? Did we just finish it?
That was the last of the
Oh, good.
profile.
Good. So now let's get to. So we're not going to get to Hisma today, but we can get to. But we are going to start reading Elazar's Pirkei Avot. So we're now on 317 on the actual text, and so remember, he's a diplomat. He doesn't see things as black and white, as right, wrong, but he's open to different options and different kind of ways of thinking about it. Make your ear like a funnel, listen with an understanding heart. He's young, he's rich, he's innovative, he's a peacemaker. Just kind of giving you some reminders of the type of person he is. So now, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, isn't there, by the way, a comedian, I think, who was a voice on The Simpsons, Hank Azaria, or Azaria. So
Yeah.
just want you to know that no relation. Okay. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, where there is no Torah, there is no right conduct. Where there is no right conduct, there is no Torah. So before, just want you to know that maybe you've heard this Hebrew expression before. Right conduct is derech eretz.
Yeah.
Now, when I was growing up, my mom used to say to me, show some derech eretz. It's like some good manners.
Why did you say that right away?
When?
Why?
Why? I can't, the list is so long. Right, so meaning though, so it's right conduct, it's, good manners, the way, derech eretz. Derech means the way, eretz means land, the way of the land. Do it the right way. Show, don't just do your own thing. There's an appropriate and proper way to be, and that's the way you should be. And what he's saying is, if there's no Torah, there's no derech eretz. And if there's no derech eretz, there's no Torah. What do you think that's trying to get at? I think it has to do with study versus action. But it could also be, behavior that you learn from the Torah. The Torah will help you get to good behavior, proper behavior, and proper behavior will also help you add more Torah in your life. But I also think this is kind of like a study in action. Like you can study Torah all day long, but if you're not also pairing it with doing the right thing and tzedakah and helping and, you know, and being a good person, then there's no Torah. But if all you're doing is work, and you're not also kind of studying and recognizing the Torah and recognizing how the Torah blends with that kind of, then really you're not, then you're just, anyone could be doing something good. It's kind of like when people say, you know, it's a Jewish value to help the homeless. And I would say, yeah, but not exclusively Jewish value to help the homeless, right? So true. It's like help the if you study Torah, if you learn about Judaism, it will help you also do the actions, help the homeless. And one leads to the other. And similarly, though, if you don't really care about your tradition and Judaism and Torah study, then you might not even realize that you should be helping the homeless. Similarly, though, if you're helping the homeless and not studying Torah, then you're not doing a Jewish tradition. You're just doing something right, but it's not specifically a Jewish value.
What I see here is there's no Torah, there's no right conduct. You're not just gonna find it on your own. It's no naturally so good that you're
That's
just
true
gonna
too.
stumble onto it. And then where there's no right conduct, there's no Torah. If you are reading Torah, you're gonna get something out of it. You might not get everything out of it, but you're gonna get something. And so there's gonna be some right conduct.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm assuming we should be reading Torah in the expansive, most expansive sense.
Yes. It's not just Torah. It's also not just Tanakh. It's
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
So it's really almost saying if you're thinking about Jewish things, you're going to
If you're
be
studying
you're going
our
to be
text,
studying
then you are naturally going to gravitate to doing right
Yeah.
behaviors because you've already kind of you've set in motion the person you are. You are a person who cares about action. You're a person who cares about studying, thinking, reading, right versus wrong, based on laws, what God wants us to do. It's going to lead you down the path of good actions. Meanwhile, if you're not, but if you don't do these good actions, then what good is studying Torah? Right? So it's without the good actions, there's no Torah either. Right? It's without Torah, there's no good actions. Without good actions, there's no Torah. I would argue that you could still have the good actions without Torah because you could arrive at them on your own. But I think what it is saying, though, what I do agree is that without good actions, there's no Torah. In other words, if you think you're just going to, it's the, I don't know if I've told this before. I remember there being, maybe it was about 20 years ago. I was reading this article, news about these ultra-Orthodox Jews who are trafficking in human organs. Right? Trafficking human, like horrible. And I was thinking, like, really? These people who got their noses in books all day long, and they are, and they're like, oh, God got this and blessings for that, but yet they're trafficking in illegal, stolen, I don't know, organs. And I'm thinking, and if there's no, right, so on the one hand, if there's no Torah, there's no right actions. But if you're not doing right actions, there really is no Torah also. In other words, it's like I look at these metaphorically now, these people, and I think to myself, you call yourself a Jew.
Well, they have to be reading it very selectively.
Yeah, but it's like I judge them.
How could they possibly think that was right?
How could they possibly? There must be no Torah involved here. You must be like,
like-
and so it's kind of like and then where there is no wisdom, there is no fear of God, and where there is no fear of God, there's no wisdom. I like this style. Like it's like there's this, there's not no that, and if there's no that, there's no this. Wisdom and fear of God. In other words, if you study enough, and if you learn enough, and if you think enough, you will be brought to the place that you're going to be fearful of God.
I read somewhere today that there's a law in Israel which is just going to expire. The title of the story was The Lost Haredi Children. And so apparently, if you are Haredi, you're supposed to be in a yeshiva and you're supposed to be studying. But here is a large group of them are listening to rap music or doing all kinds of other things which they shouldn't. And the law giving them an exemption is going to expire this week sometime.
An exemption for what?
For military service.
Oh, I see, okay, yeah.
And consequently, some people are saying, these people who are not really studying Torah should be drafted into the
And they're just being, I see, because they're they've already kind of separated themselves, but they're still allowing kind of like their parents' address to be the reason why they are exempt from military service. Yeah, it's true.
There are Orthodox Jews in Israel who voluntarily joined the IDF.
Okay, so first of all, there's two types of Orthodox. There's modern Orthodox, and then there's ultra-Orthodox. So modern Orthodox, for sure, they're all in the army. We're talking about ultra-Orthodox, the people who spend their days in yeshiva.
Supposedly.
As opposed to the rest of the Orthodox that have jobs and do everything, so there really is a difference, because if you go to Israel today, you'll see tons of people with the hats and the side curls and the whole thing, they're ultra-Orthodox. But then you see a whole world of people who are like men who are wearing yarmulkes, but pretty much other than that, it's just business as usual. So because in Israel, the reform movement is, I don't want to say it's weak. And why is it weak? It's because it's been weakened by the government for years and years and years. The government has in charge of religion is the Orthodox Party that joined the government with them. And so they have for generations, or at least for decades now, they have been marginalizing Reform Judaism, and it still goes on to this very day. So therefore, there's a whole world of Orthodox Jews who are in the same way that you might know Orthodox Jews in America. This guy, but he's a doctor with me at the hospital. He's a lawyer with me. He's a dentist, and he wears a yarmulke. But it's not like all day long he's walking around with a Talmud in his hand. It's a normal guy, keeps kosher, doesn't drive on Shabbat, and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, he pretty much just leads a typical life. And I think they're all in the army. There's not a single person. In fact, not only are they in the army, but they're not, it's not even like desk jobs. They're fighters in the army. They are in Gaza right now.
But it seemed like what Bob was saying is that there are some ultra-Orthodox who are starting to,
yes,
as a result of October 7th.
Who are also, that's correct. There are some ultra-Orthodox who have volunteered to serve in the army because of October 7th. I've seen articles.
That's what I saw,
Yeah, and that's very beautiful.
That's what I was referring to.
And that's very beautiful. And not just public service behind the desk, but actually doing fighting, although not many, but still there are some, and it's worthy.
The one I saw, the one I either saw or read about, said he was doing it in spite of the fact that he knew that his rabbi would not approve.
Because remember,
the lone soldier, or when a soldier from the U.S. goes over and they have sort of an adopted family that looks after them, because it's lone soldiers, isn't that what it's called now?
I'm not sure, but I know what you're talking about.
But a bunch of those people are from ultra-Orthodox families whose families have rejected them.
Right.
You're going to go to the army. You're not this family. So they have.
Right. So
really,
what's okay? So what's fascinating about this is, there's a large section of ultra-Orthodox in Jerusalem, for example, that don't speak Hebrew. They speak Yiddish. And why? And they've been living there for decades. Why? It's because they're not there because they're Zionists. They're there because they're Jews and but they're still waiting for the Messiah to come before they'll start speaking Hebrew and living in Israel in the way that they want to. Similarly, there are groups of ultra-Orthodox Jews. And by the way, if you ever come across these people, they make me want to throw up. And I'll actually tell you a funny story about them. They're called Neturei Karta. Neturei Karta are ultra-Orthodox Jews who are anti-Zionist.
Oh, right.
I will never forget. This story is etched in my mind, acid etched. So it was 15 or 16 years ago. It was in the last year of the Bush administration. And we had a Middle East summit in Annapolis. So you weren't here, you weren't here,
I wasn't
you
here.
weren't here, you were here. Summit on the Naval Academy grounds. And Bush brought in, I can't remember, Ehud Barak was here, and I think it was Abbas. I'm not sure, I can't remember. And it was a huge thing, Middle East Summit here in Annapolis. And I remember going down to the Naval Academy and just kind of being at the gates, just to kind of be part of what I consider to be history, even though you couldn't go in. And outside of the gates of the Naval Academy, were these ultra right-wing, like settlers who were there protesting the negotiations that were going on inside, right? Protesting because they didn't want two states. They want one state, completely Jewish. They want the whole West Bank as ours, right? And I'm like looking at them and I'm just disgusted. And I'm like, you are here sabotaging this really worthy, great thing, and because you want all this thing. And then I look down, and I remember I'm standing at the gate, what was at the time, I think, the main gate on Prince George Street, at the bottom of Prince George Street at the
Gate 1.
Gate 1, right? Before it makes the right hand turn, right? And I'm literally standing at that gate with all these, and then I turn and I look down to Main Street or the, Eagle Alley area, and I can see a group of ultra-Orthodox coming forward, marching up towards Gate 1 from down there, right? And I look at them and I'm like, who are these people? I've come to find out that they are Neturei Karta. So they are they are against this agreement, not because they think all of Israel is there, but because none of Israel should be Jews.
Until the Messiah comes.
Because they're waiting for the Messiah to come, right? And so, which is remarkable, right? But the hilarious part was, as I am not sure who is disgusting me more, this group or that, and it's obviously that group, the Neturei Karta, disgusts me more, right? I forget, though, that these two groups hate each other even more than I hate them.
Tell me they started fighting.
We made on the other people.
And what was absolutely,
No wonder there's no peace.
and I will never forget, never forget, right? You have these ultra-Orthodox men, and you've got men and women on the settler right wing, and the women are just bloodthirsty. And what do? They go up to the ultra-Orthodox men and start grabbing them and touching them. and the Neturei Kartas are like, and they're just like, and I find this to be brilliantly hilarious, hysterical, right? and meanwhile, it is like the most aggressive.
Gosh, that's hysterical.
Hysterical, right? And so from that point on, it became clear I like the settlers more than I like the Neturei Karta. But it's what a great, right? Like in Annapolis, like in our city of Annapolis, that happened.
That's ridiculous.
Right, which is like it's like a Jewish wasteland.
What is that word, Nurei?
Neturei Karta, Neturei Karta, right? Yeah, look at it'll be a blast to read some of the stuff that they. I mean, I remember Neturei Karta going arm in arm with Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the president of Iran, when he was calling for the destruction of Israel with nuclear weapons. They're up on stage with him clapping, right? It was awful. But the point is that so why did that? What was this? I don't even know what. Must have been something really funny. But anyway, great story. Now so it's already 8, but let's read a little bit more. And let's go to just a couple more lines, because there's actually a natural break. Because this is, depending on how, which edition, this sometimes is two separate ones or one. So let me get finished. Where there is no understanding, there is no knowledge, and where there's no knowledge, there is no understanding. I think that kind of is somewhat intuitive for us, which is that we have to, like, if you don't have some basics to serve as a foundation for who you are, you won't be able to have true understanding. And similarly, though, if you don't have the capacity to be a person who understands, you'll never really be able to gain knowledge. Then the last one, which I want to look at, which we'll end, this is a famous one.
Understanding something like right belief as opposed to knowledge?
Or just wisdom, the capacity to learn, I think.
Okay.
The last one is, where there is no bread, there is no Torah, and where there is no Torah, there is no bread. Now, we'll end with this one. This is really, okay, so what do you get from this?
It sounds like Maslow's hierarchy to me.
It is very much that, which is that, look, if you're starving to death, then how do you really expect to be able to study? But if you're not studying, now that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So let's so the Hebrew is in kemach ein Torah. Kemach is flour, like not like a bud, but rather flour like sifting to make bread.
Yeah.
But also it means sustenance. So if you think of it as sustenance, then it's if you don't have sustenance, then you can't study Torah. But if you don't study Torah, then you're not nourished fully.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's a good point.
that's really neat.
Right? Isn't that it's a nice, and by the way, that is the reason why I've always loved this is because this is something which they would tell us as rabbis. They'd say, because there's always the thing about, rabbis and salary and earning money, right? And it's like, we think to ourselves, look, we do this because of the love of Judaism, right? And the love, we want to kind of help lead Judaism into the next 100 years. And at the same time, but if we aren't aware that we still need to earn a living and put food on our table and send our kids to college and stuff like that, then, because we still have to concentrate on that too. So without, so sure, so if there's no sustenance, if there's no way to earn a living, then you can't really, how do you expect us to really be the ones who are, teaching Torah to a community? And at the same time, though, without Torah, there's no, we were just taught that as rabbis. It's like, look, the Torah is your helps you. Without sustenance, you can't really do it. But without, the Torah, there's not going to be any sustenance. Not
Your
nourishment.
wife work for you like Rachel.
That's right. That's right. And you just need a wealthy wife.
What's one of the things that's cool about these, the chiasma,
Yeah.
X, it really ties the two words together, like Torah and bread, and forces you to see what the connection is.
Right. It does. It kind of.
It's not what you can do for your country, what your country can do for you.
That's right. Exactly correct. So let me just put a little note here saying we start halfway through. So next week is April 2nd? Wait,
Yes.
30 days of September, April, June,
It's April 2nd.
April 3rd. Wait,
No, March 31st is Sunday.
so there is no March, oh, no, it's right, there is March 31st. April 2nd, 2024. Okay, so we'll pick it up next week right there, and then I will be sending out, because I already made a Eliezer Ben Chizma resource sheet. I'll send that out to you guys tomorrow probably. I was supposed to do it today, but made copies, but I was supposed to do it today, didn't. Things just got away.
Are the copies up there? We just.
Yeah, you can take one if you want to, so you don't have to.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll give it to you, those who are here, and for everybody else here. So this, again, this is for next week. And also I made the new document for chapter 4, because
Okay.
we're almost at the end, and so therefore I made a new document. So here's this. If you probably don't need to take the new one yet, because we're probably not going to get to it until 2 weeks. But anyway, that's for next week. All right. So, and I'll put it in the Google Classroom for you guys tomorrow for sure. Jeff, nice to see you. Sharon, nice to see you. And tell Stephen I say hi. I saw him earlier. Talk
Have
to
a good
you
night,
later.
everybody.